Welcome back. The EFF wants the Democratic Alliance to take a backseat in the election of the mayor of Johannesburg around this time. Now, the DA announced its candidate to replace Herman Mashaba, who resigned last month, but EFF leader Julius Malema says the Red Berets will field its own. He says it's now the DA's turn to support them.
Why should it be who is the EFF going to support? Are we not leaders? Are we not capable enough to lead? Why is the question? Why the question is always, who is the EFF going to support? Why are not asking the question to these other parties, are you going to support the EFF? So we are going to field a candidate. We are going to contest. And we call upon the DA to support our candidate, the ANC to support our candidate. The DA more so that we supported their candidate before, and their candidate left them. It's not our problem. We are now here, so they must support us.
All right, let's get some analysis on that media address and the dynamics between the EFF and the DA. As you well know, EFF leader Julius Malema says working with Helen Zille and John Steenhuisen, the party's now interim leader, will be difficult. I'm joined by Professor Ivo Sarakinski from the Wits School of Governance. Thanks for your time, Prof. I appreciate it. So the EFF is now saying take a backseat in Joburg and we'll help you out in Pretoria. Can these two parties actually work in Gauteng?
It's unlikely, because the EFF said earlier this year that they're ceasing all cooperation with the DA. So what they're trying to do is position themselves as the king as opposed to the kingmaker by saying you must support us now. And there's another dimension to this. They've said they won't vote for the DA. They won't support the ANC either. So the way that they can save face is to field a candidate and all their delegates in council vote for the EFF candidate, meaning that if the ANC can cobble an alliance with the IFP and one or two other smaller parties, they could take the mayorship.
Yeah. Now, the EFF and DA have made it very clear that they do not want an ANC person in charge of these two cities. So will that eventually force them to work together going into this?
They've said that, but they've also said they won't collaborate. And the DA's review of the 2019 election was very clear that collaboration with the EFF has undermined the DA's brand and image. So it's going to be very difficult now to drop all of that and collaborate again. And this has created a vacuum which the ANC and smaller parties may well fill.
Yeah. So if you listen to what they say in public versus what we see behind the scenes, we know that Julius Malema said, he preferred working with Mmusi Maimane, even though they slammed each other publicly. He's now saying it'll be very difficult to work with John Steenhuisen. Where then does this leave any possible relationship between these two parties?
Well, in Johannesburg and Tshwane, there's specific dynamics, and that might not be the case in other contexts where collaboration may be possible. In terms of lower profile, lower intensity coalitions at local government level. But these public statements make it very difficult for these collaborative processes to take place, because the accusation of hypocrisy and backtracking and flip-flopping is now such an issue that it can undermine the credibility of these arrangements should they happen.
Yeah, and talking about credibility, and I'm throwing this one at you randomly, of course, is Bongani Bongo for the ANC, a member of parliament, an esteemed position, many would argue, but not really the case if you face corruption charges. What does the party do with him?
Well, it's quite clear what they should do with him. What they will do with him is unlikely to correspond with what they ought to do with him. And that will be because of the horse trading behind the scenes in terms of the factional battles. This person is part of the Zuma faction, and the Ramaphosa faction is probably feeling a bit sensitive in terms of all the attacks that are forthcoming. So he's probably going to stay a member of parliament. The slap on the wrists might well be he's no longer the chair of this crucial Home Affairs Portfolio Committee. Yeah. And that will be a public indication that action's being taken, whereas we all know he should be shoved out of Parliament so quickly for other actions as well as this action.
Now, you and I might say that a person like this, even though facing allegations, should be kicked out of the position. The ANC would argue otherwise because you're innocent until proven otherwise. But what does this mean for the public's opinion of the party? Because, you know, the public is so used to seeing all of these allegations about officials that it seems when we go to election, they somewhat forget about it.
Yeah. And that's exactly the problem. So the codes of conduct are very clear, not to bring embarrassment on your party, to conduct yourself ethically, and these allegations are sufficiently serious for those clauses to now become active. And by saying that there's a higher standard of a conviction in a court of law is just kicking the can down the road in terms of the internal politics. What it means is that citizens see this happening and they say, well, there we go. We always knew that politicians duck and dive and bob and weave. We know they act in their interests as opposed to our interests, and therefore public trust, public credibility of these institutions, especially Parliament, weakens, and that's to the detriment of South African democracy.
Thank you so much for your insight and your time. We do appreciate it. That is Ivor Sarakinski, Associate Professor from the Wits School of Governance. Here's a